Hi, everybody. Welcome to 6 Months Later, the podcast 180 Days in the Making, where we talk to interesting people in the present, and then we talk to them 6 months later in the future, which is then the present, and we see how their lives are going. My name is Matthew Shadorn, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host,
Tara Newton-Wordsworth. Hello.
Hi, Tara. How are you today?
I'm fantastic, thank you, Matt. How are you?
I am all right. Yeah.
Have you had any exciting developments this week?
No, I have been outside digging in the yard today, leveling the ground so I can put in my new shed. So that's exciting.
Wow, leveling the ground, eh? I had no idea that you were into ground leveling. That's exciting.
No, it's new to me and it sucks. So I respect all the professional ground levelers out there. If you're listening, I respect you.
That's beautiful.
What have you been up to, Tara?
God, I don't know. I've just been dealing with copious amounts of, toddler stuff, which has been nightmarish, teething, whining, potty training regressions. Like, it's just, you've got all this to come, Matt, and I'm very excited for you. But yeah, that is pretty much just my life at the moment. So I would say very boring to talk about in general.
Oh, well, I have something that leads into our 6 months predictions.
Okay.
Is I heard a rumor this week, and I can't say from who, and there's apparently some kind of like super secret injunction thing about not publishing stuff, that there's a law in this country that I don't know. Anyways, so it's apparently covered under some kind of anti-publishing law that I don't know about. But this is the rumor. But in 6 months, it'll either be totally bullshit or it'll have happened. So it doesn't matter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is the rumor I heard, and this might be true. So you might be listening to this in the future and be like, oh my God, Matt Shadorn is amazing, or an idiot, or both. I don't know, probably both. But I had heard that Boris Johnson's wife left him.
What?
She moved out. So Boris Johnson, for those of you who don't know, the terrible prime minister of Great Britain, that his wife left him. The wife that or is it even his wife? It's like his girlfriend, right?
I don't know. I'm not sure. They're having a baby together.
They had the
baby. They had the baby. Oh, okay. Sorry.
They had the baby, but they apparently, he cheated. So long story short, he cheated on his wife while she was getting cancer treatment with this woman who is 20 years younger than him and worked for him. And they had a baby, which the British tabloids somehow made into a romantic story. And so then she moved into number 10 with him when he became prime minister. But apparently he also has a violinist lover that he has also impregnated.
No.
And so
this guy, he has got to learn about, contraception. I think hasn't he got 14 kids or something? I'm sure I've heard that he's got kids all around the place. Maybe it's not 14, but it's 6 or 8.
Yeah. The number is something between 6 and 10, I think, but nobody knows the actual number.
It blows my mind.
Do you want to hear the craziest thing about this?
Okay.
She is she was born in East Germany, and she is the daughter of Russian citizens. Her father worked for the KGB under then East German section head Vladimir Putin.
What?
Oh, so she is almost undoubtedly a spy.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So how do you know this? Oh, you can't tell me.
I can't say. I shouldn't say. It may be a complete fabrication. Maybe I'm making it up. Or maybe you're listening to this and being like, Matt Shadorn had the inside scoop the whole time. But
wow.
Well, I guess we'll find out in 6 months.
God. I mean, I don't know. We probably won't find out the same way we haven't found out about his 10 children. Honestly. The guy is amazing, though. How does he do it? I just find it incredible. He's managed to get to the position he's got to. Well, it's the same as Trump, I guess, with his whole, all the comments he's made and stuff. And people are like, but he's a guy's guy. He's a man's man. I love him. Right. And you're just like, really? If it was a woman, there is no way. They'd be like, haven't you got 10 children? We've found every single one of them. And we've got interviews right here. And the public would be like, that is appalling.
Right.
It's just, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not going to go on
It's called Failing Upwards, and rich white guys have made an art of it, frankly.
It's impressive. I feel like I should learn from them. I mean, I have loads of kids that I've just, I've moved from town to town. I leave my kids everywhere I go. It's a lot harder, obviously, as a woman to impregnate people.
I guess.
Yeah. Anyway, moving right on from that. But that's exciting for a 6 months prediction, I guess, to see whether this child is real and whether, she is a spy and all this stuff. So
if it brings down the Johnson administration, maybe,
great.
Who knows?
Fantastic. So I love the way that you also just went, oh, he's our terrible prime minister, in this way of just like, that's just how we introduce him now. It's not like, in the UK, there's a prime minister. He's just the terrible prime minister. I think there would be a lot of people that would probably disagree. I think a lot of people have been pulled into the romance, particularly of his like COVID speeches, like when he had COVID and came out and, you know, it was all, I mean, I think I was pulled in to some degree. Like he was very good at the dramatic speeches. It was very much channeling Churchill, but I felt that was also very much on purpose as well.
Yeah. Just a pale imitation. Don't fall for it. It's all an act.
Oh yeah. No, I'm aware.
Empty vessel. I think 6 months later, you're going to be like, well, I'm voting Tory now. He just really won me over. The way he raises those 2 children in that multi-mother household, it's just.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm not about to vote Tory. However, if you choose to, that's your choice. There's no judgment here.
You can go straight to hell.
Okay, do I have any other predictions for 6 months' time? Not really. I think the whole second lockdown is coming, according to everything I keep seeing on the news. So I'm assuming we'll all just be probably in lockdown again. Woohoo! So yeah, that's my exciting prediction. Oh, that, and also that we will, this isn't for 6 months' time, but I do feel like we're going to get a way of uploading our subconscious to like a cloud so that we can live forever. Like, I think this is a while off, but that's just my big.
Your timeline's like what, 7-8 months on that, or?
I don't know. I reckon within the next 15 years. I'm saying 15 years. I reckon we'll be able to live forever through the cloud somehow.
Well, if we're listening to this, we'll do 15 years later. We'll put this in the
swing prediction. I
feel like we're gonna end up like Nostradamus. We're just gonna have a lot of amazing predictions, and in the future, people will think that we're prophets, seers. Yeah. Maybe not.
In the future, where we're living in the cloud, and then everyone's like, "Wow, you knew we'd be up here." Yeah. All right.
So let's get on with no further ado to our amazing interview today.
Woohoo.
Shall we? Yeah.
Yes, please. Great.
Please welcome to the show an old friend of mine and a principal in Seattle, Andrew Zillig. I don't know why I said Andrew. I've never called you Andrew before in your life. Andy Zillig. Hi, Andy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and I'm technically only an assistant principal.
Principal.
We'll see how long I last, right?
Like, you think you move up or move down, or?
Who knows with what's going on nowadays, right?
Yeah. Andy, how are you doing these days? How are you holding up out there in Seattle?
I'm doing fine, and family's doing fine. It's aggravating, but I doubt it's any more aggravating than the rest of the world. You know, can't go too many places, and then you go places, and then you see people. So where are all these people out? So. Every once in a while, I have to go into work, and the commute is amazing because there's no traffic. And lately, though, the traffic is kind of inching back up to what it normally is, which means more people are getting out and about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't go to many places. We stay in our house. I'm pretty much the only one who ever leaves, you know, aside from like walking around the neighborhood or anything like that. But I go to the grocery store. I run the errands. But that's
sure. And you're starting to go back to school to set up for the next school year. And your school is it K through 8?
It's a K-5. Actually, K-5. We have a preschool as well.
Oh, okay. And when do you start? Is it next week or was it this week?
We start on Friday. The staff is already back, and we're doing most schools, most school districts will have those days before school where it's all training and preparation and stuff, and that's where we are right now.
Oh, okay. So so Seattle kind of was early on one of the epicenters for COVID, and the city seems to have recovered and found kind of a new normal, would you say, with the virus, kind of like most of us have, I guess?
I guess I would call it a new normal. Things are changing all the time, and certainly like this with the start of the school year, it is definitely a new endeavor that has been confusing and frustrating for families and staff alike, I think. And a lot of it had to do with the situation being as it as it is, you can't make plans too far out and be able to stick with them. And that's frustrating. But at the same time, it's frustrating not to know what's going on. But, if you asked me what was going to happen, 6 months ago, where would we be right now? I wouldn't have guessed it, right?
Yeah.
So you can't sit down and say, okay, in 2 months, this is exactly what's going to happen, because as soon as you make that statement, 2 days later, all this new information comes out and making whatever statement you made invalid or moot or whatever. So, and that's just the reality, I think, that everybody's getting used to, and it's really, or trying to get used to, and it's really hard to operate that way. Personally, I find that really anxiety laden. I don't like the unknown. I don't think I'm alone in that, but
sure.
Yeah, so it's frustrating. I mean, we're making announcements with state and local officials that, this is happening tomorrow or this is happening today. And as a district and as a school, we're doing the same thing is happening. We're making announcements with, okay, this is what's happening and it's going to start tomorrow or the next day. Sometimes we get a couple of weeks ahead, lead time and stuff, but
right.
So I don't know. I think the chaos is kind of the new normal and confusion is kind of the new normal, but I think there are still a lot of things that are still being figured out, and what the new normal looks like, I don't think is solidified.
So does the city have kind of a good plan in place or the school district have a good plan in place for bringing students back and like probably having to shut it down again if that has to happen?
Yeah. So for a good part of the summer, we were operating under the plan that we would have a sort of hybrid approach. We'd have online learning available. When we shut down in March, like many places, we just shut down and it was all online, and we were sort of building the plane as it flew. And then over the summer, we came up with plans, and we were going to allow anybody who wanted to opt into 100% online. And then we were going to do like a hybrid model. We were developing that. So we'd have some kids who, families opt in for 100% online, but we'd have some in-person teaching on like a alternating schedule. So first part, couple of days a week, half of the student body would be able to come in and see their teacher and get on, in-person instruction. And then the switch and the other half would come in the second part of the week, with Wednesdays sort of being a non-classroom day. That just didn't come to pass because of rising infection rate and positivity rates and all that. And so we switched to online learning. It's been a pretty heavy lift. And a lot of it has to do with, there's a lot of logistics that go into getting technology into the hands of everybody, making sure they've got not just a device, but adequate, bandwidth connectivity.
Yeah. And I feel like in the past you've told me that there's like a really high poverty rate amongst your students for the sending district in your school, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Seattle, so it's we're an urban school district, and we're not the only building that's got a lot of who serve families who are dealing with a lot of unstable aspects in their life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So housing instability, food instability, lack of access to adequate technology, internet services, healthcare,
pretty much everything.
Yeah. So there's a lot there to navigate, and then so there's just logistically there's a lot to figure out. And then aside from the fact that we also have to think about like working conditions for staff. So a lot of the sort of last minute things that were happening, or seemingly last minute things that were happening, had to do with contract negotiations for the teacher's contract, and what is this going to look like for staff who are coming back. And so all that had to be negotiated, and that really still hasn't. I mean, they've reached some agreements, but right now, as we're recording, it hasn't been voted on by the teachers. So there could be still some things to be figured out.
Oh, wow.
How are you feeling about going back to school?
I'm nervous for various reasons. I know people who are in at-risk categories, meaning like staff and colleagues who are in at-risk categories and don't, so they really wanted not to have students come in. But it's really tough. I also know a lot of like young childless teachers, and they're
bastards.
Well, they don't have necessarily those, those fears and stuff, but they also then live in like a studio apartment, and now they have to have to work out of that studio apartment and turn it into a classroom, right? Or maybe they live in a house, but with like 6 roommates and stuff, and they have to teach out of their homes, and that's going to be difficult. So then then there's options. Okay, then they can come into the building and basically turn their classroom into like a TV studio and teach out of there, because all their stuff is there, and all that kind of stuff. But then they're leaving their homes and they're going into a building where other people are going into. So then so you take one set of factors and weigh them against a whole nother set of factors, and then in the building, while we're not going to necessarily have students come in, but there's going to be other staff there, because if you are a site that serves meals, people are going to be coming. They're not necessarily coming into the building, but there's still going to be people around. You got custodial staff, and you've got your fellow teachers coming in. You've got maintenance staff, and then you have people like me. Do I need to be in there the whole time, as a administrative or supervisory role or something like that? You've also got special education services that oftentimes that determinations have to be made, because there are some special ed services that may have to be done in person, right? You can't do via a platform, an online platform. Then you have to create conditions for that. So then there may be some students who are coming into the building, if only for a short time, for a session with a teacher. And, there's all these things that people are thinking about and talking about and don't necessarily have really solid answers. And even with pretty solid answer from a department head or from the district, it's still kind of in theory, right? Because we haven't done it.
Yeah.
And so what we write down on paper as an idea and in a plan doesn't always look the same in practice. And so, that makes people nervous.
Sure.
Then you have the fact that, I still have 2 school-age kids at home, right? I've got 2 out the door, but I still got 2 left to go. So,
right. So Tara has 2 kids. Yeah, and I have the one on the way, which you're very excited. Actually, Andy was I think the first person I told.
That's cute.
I was very panicked. Yeah.
It was. I think it was less of hey, Andy, I've got great news, and hey, Andy, please talk me off this ledge.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Freaking out.
Yeah, I was like, what about, and then the baby, and then my wife, what if everybody dies? And he's like, no, it's fine. It'll be fine. It's, and I was very and her friend just had a baby, and there was all these complications, and he's like, that's so rare. He's got a very calming voice, got a very calming Midwestern voice. Andy does.
And we've had, with Penelope, Jill was like this. All of our kids were born at home, and with my second daughter, Jill was really minutes away from having us we might have needed to call 911 or the hospital, because she was started to bleed way too much. So. Things can happen, but people know what they're doing. You're not watching a YouTube tutorial or anything for this.
Not anymore. No,
if you find any, ignore them, because they're probably not any good. Sorry.
Did you have did you have a midwife with you, and what did she? If you had a midwife, what did she do when that happened?
We did have a midwife, but the reason there was complication is it was what's called a precipitous birth. So Jillian, she didn't really believe that she was in labor. I tried to convince her she was in labor, and I finally we called the midwife, and she's making all those sort of quintessential labory sounds, like the breathing and the moaning and stuff like that. My wife has been ingrained in she was raised by her grandparents, and she's got this really great sense of phone etiquette. And so I called my wife and I was like, look, I think she's in labor, and she doesn't think that I know anything. Will you please tell her? And literally I'm standing next to her while she's making all these noises, and I say, okay, hold on. And I give the phone to her, and she just immediately is like, oh, hi. Yes, no, I think I'm okay. All right. And I can hear in the earpiece, she's like, listen to your husband, you're in labor. I'm going to, so it was pretty funny. But anyway,
wow.
It went so fast. We talked about where she was in that stage. She's like, okay, I'm going to start getting ready, and I'll head in there in a little bit. But it started happening so fast. I called her back probably, I don't know, half hour later. And she's like, all right, I'm on my way. She drove really fast. She sped the entire way. And she said she even switched lanes a little erratically, almost hoping to get pulled over, because if you show your credentials and say that what you're doing, she could get a police escort, but that never happened. So she just drove really crazy. And Penelope came out. It was just me and Jill.
Oh my gosh, what? So you caught her, or like you had to birth?
Yeah, I had a pretty well-oiled catcher's mitt. I was ready.
Oh my gosh.
Penelope was my third, and I've been there for all of them. So,
and they've all been at home. That's the other thing.
They've all been at home. They've all been home births. We did water births. We got the birth in tub and all that kind of stuff. And we were in the tub. We didn't have the water at quite a high level as we wanted because, like I said, it was really, really fast. But basically, baby came out, placed Penelope up on mommy's chest, and I said, "You got this?" She said, "Yeah." I said, I never unlocked the front door. I'm going to go turn on the porch light. I'll be right back. And and I kind of, I ran over there and I unlocked the door and I turned on the light and I kind of opened the door too to look around and, to see if she was there and maybe the midwife was there and needed stuff. And I literally saw her car come tearing around the corner at the end of the block. And then I just left the door open. I went back to my wife. I said, "She's on her way." And she comes running in. And the first thing she says is, "I don't even know how to bill you guys." So, but she was there for, like within 5 minutes of Penelope coming out. So.
Whoa. And Penelope was breathing and everything when she came out.
Oh yeah. She was perfectly healthy.
Because that's the thing that always concerned me about if I had to do it on my own was like the thing where sometimes when they come out, they're not breathing and they have to do that kind of massaging thing. And I was like, that was literally my main concern was like, how do I do the massaging thing? I'm just not very good at listening to instructions on, like, I think I get stressed out. It's weird when someone's like, "Okay, listen, this is really important." Like I remember that when I was at camp and I was in year 10, this is in Australia, we were walking through the bush and they're like, "We're going to leave you by yourselves, like just the kids for the next 24 hours. You got to camp overnight by yourself and stuff. I'm going to tell you." In Australia. And then I was like, and then they're just like, "We're going to tell you what to do if a snake bites you. Okay. If someone gets bitten by a snake," they were just like, "Listen, this is really important." Okay. And I was like, "Oh my God, I've got to listen to this. This is really important." And then all I remember from after that is like, I have no idea, looking around, thinking something. And then I was like, shit, I missed the whole thing on like what to do. And I still don't know what I'm supposed to do. So I should probably look that up as well. But I think that,
I would think in Australian schools, there'd just be like a snake bite class.
A standard one.
Yeah.
And
what
also,
to do if a classmate gets carried off by a dingo, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Just like how to live in it's called How to Live in This Terrible Country 101.
Someone, we did actually, one of the groups of, like we split into two groups and the other group did see a snake, a big one, coiled up in a, I don't know, I guess a spiral. And then they had to all sort of sneak around it. And thankfully no one got bitten. Luckily I wasn't in that group because I would not know how to help anybody. But yeah, I don't know. I think the birth thing, I ended up going to the hospital for both births, which I was glad that I did because I had huge babies and needed a lot of stitching. So I would have had to go anyway because the midwife couldn't stitch that level of stitching, unfortunately. But how big were your babies? Were they so your wife had all babies at home, which is pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm. And was that regular sized babies, 7 or 8 pounds?
Okay, yeah, because my first one was 9 pounds 8 ounces, and I think that's quite like for your first one. I'm quite glad that we did go to the hospital. That was the only reason we went, because then when they were measuring him, they were like, "Oh, he's gonna be big."
Wow. I mean, that's an easy option in the UK, but hospitals are expensive in America. So
yeah.
I will say that all my babies, cost me a few $100. I bargain basement. No.
Yeah.
So if you go to the hospital, like, as in, do you need insurance? Like, as in it to be able to go to the hospital in America to have a baby? Like, is it that you need to have special insurance beforehand, or do you need to pay some massive amount of money? Like, I mean,
you don't have to have special insurance, but you have health insurance.
Health insurance, yeah.
You give them all that information when you sign up with your obstetrician or OBGYN or whatever you're doing, in your prenatal care.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's kind of this.
What hospital they have privileges with, and you go to that hospital, and then you have this joyous moment, and then they send you home, and a few days later, and I'm guessing about this process. This never happened for any of my kids, and then I would guess a few days later, you get this gigundous bill.
Yeah.
And then you look at your kid and wonder if it was worth it.
Yeah.
Jeepers, man.
Yeah, like, I'm never going to make this money back. Yeah, that's what you look at it and you're like,
and so it begins. This kid's going to cost me so much money. We are so off topic right now.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was going to say, so all of this is to say you have 2 school-age children yourself, which you also have to manage that.
And that right there, I also don't know what it's going to be like. When schools closed, when school shut down back in March, my wife's in grad school and she's doing it online. So, nothing really changed for her. And we decided for her to, in order to get done and not take like 6 years to do it, she was going to do it full time for a year and finish it up. So she was, the only thing that really changed for her was that instead of being home all day where she could read and study and, do assignments, write papers and stuff like that, the only thing that changed for her is now that everybody was in the house to distract and pester her, so she couldn't get any of that stuff done. And when it happened back in the original closure, like I said, everybody was trying to kind of figure stuff out. But now that they've had all summer to formulate a plan, the plan, I think, is way better than what we did. And it certainly has more rigor in what we are wanting students to do. We really need to make sure that we are getting optimal learning out of this new platform. But in order to do that, there's a lot more commitment to how much time kiddos are going to be on an online platform and what times and stuff. And so as we look at this proposed schedules that have come out from over the summer from the district and the union and all that kind of stuff, we're envisioning the 4 of us all sitting down simultaneously. My 6-year-old and my 8-year-old will have a similar schedule. And so they each have to have their own device and they each have to sit down and they have to be working. But my wife will still have her classes. In fact, our plan kind of got shot. She had to drop a class and it's going to take her a little bit long because we just couldn't commit. We couldn't get everything. She couldn't do that level of work and support our kids. And because we're both trying to like tag team that, and it was really hard. And now there's even more we're asking a lot of families to do this, and so we're hopeful that we can do it. But I have to work, so but I'm also in the so how am I going to do I need to help support my kids learning, but I also have to be working. I just don't know. So we're gonna, and I have no what do we do too, because in order to do my job, can I do my job sitting next to my 6-year-old so that I can support him if he has questions?
Right.
And if I did, how effective will I be at my job, and how effective will I be at helping? Or do I try and hole up in a room all by myself like I'm doing now and leaving him to his own devices and hoping that his teacher is able to help him out in the ways that he needs to be helped out? I don't know. In theory, it sounds like a great plan, but in practice, I'm one of those people who like can find like every permutation possible and freak out.
And that's like the conversation happening in like 1,000 households in Seattle alone, and then
exactly. And here I am. I'm a white dude of privilege, who's able to work from home, and I am struggling to find how I'm going to navigate this. I have anxiety about how I'm going to navigate this. What about the families that we serve who don't have jobs that they can do remotely, that have to leave?
Right.
They have to work at grocery stores or hospitals or other places like that where you can't do things remotely. So then how are their kids going to get support? What if there's not a family member who can stay at home and, so they go into childcare? And then I know we're working with a lot of childcare places to have supports, but I've already heard people wondering about, how many kids are going to be in a room doing this online learning thing with, somebody who, unfortunately, childcare providers aren't paid very well, and those things aren't, so like the staffing's not great. So it was like one adult going to be in there with like 12 or 15 kids, basically saying, I don't know, ask your teacher over and over again. And I worry about that. What about people who are like single parents who've got like 3 kids at home? Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it feels like, and like, I feel like the US and the UK kind of did the same thing, which is like they seem so dead set on reopening businesses. And then it got to about the end of July and they were like, oh, right, schools. And behind the scenes, a lot of people have been doing stuff, but it does feel like, yeah, like you're saying, like kids with special needs, kids with access to technology issues, kids with food insecurity, things like that. It's like there's a million different roles that the school was playing that it can't accomplish anymore. And it's such a nightmare.
Yeah.
I have no insight. I'm just like, that's terrible. Wow.
And there are plans in place and plans that make sense.
Right.
But you can't make one singular plan that is going to be ideal for every single person. We just have too many different family situations, the way families are set up, and we have way too many housing situations, employment situations, or unemployment situations. Like there's just there's too many constantly moving variables for you to create a singular plan that's going to, be the best, that's going to be, 100% for everybody. And it's just not. And so then it becomes my job to, at our schools, we've been trying to formulate plans about how we're going to connect with families to help them mitigate or navigate these issues about devices or Wi-Fi or connectivity, whether or not they're, if their job situation change, their housing situations change. We've had a lot of that has happened over the summer. We know that there are families all across the city who have lost their jobs or have had to change their jobs or had to move out of state.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
I don't know. Yeah, I feel. Yeah. I mean, I'm working for Queen's College here in Oxford, just dealing with some of that stuff, but that's on a college level. I can't even, like, little kids and things like that. Like the loss of those years of learning, or the potential loss of those, months and years of learning seems like, I don't know, like it would have a devastating knock-on effect.
It'd be curious. I'm sure there's already people designing some longitudinal studies about the impacts of these COVID years. And not that I think that we should, like, I'm certainly not making an argument that we should say, well, then kids need to come to school. I mean, we've seen what happened in other parts of the country where they said, kids are going to come to school, and they were in school for a day and somebody tested positive. And a week later, like 1,000 kids are positive for COVID. So I certainly don't think that those were smart ways to go. And I'm grateful that we made the decision early not to do that, so we could concentrate on how to make this online thing work as in the best way possible. But like I said, there's no right answer, and some places and some districts are doing better than others. But
yeah,
we'll just have to see how it goes.
I love you, Andy, just did this like sort of positive smile to end that kind of like very depressing statement. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I was listening to a thing the other day just even about leavers, like as in the fact that for their last year in school, just they haven't had to have any of that kind of development of self as well that you get in that final year of your school, where you kind of have that, I know this sounds ridiculous, but that weird, like, hey, it doesn't actually matter if you're cool or not. Like, I just am who I am. And everyone kind of lets go of all that stuff from the years gone past. You have your leavers stuff, your parties and everything, and you get some form of self from that to go out into the world and then become an adult. And none of that. I didn't
get invited to any parties when I was a senior.
I mean, that explains a lot.
Well, wait! There were parties. They also they were focusing on college.
They were out of town. You didn't know them. Yeah, it's cool. Don't worry about it. We were there, but don't worry about it. Yeah, there's a lot of sort of rites of passage, right? In that senior year of high school, that my son went through that, and because he was a senior last year, and so he worked his butt off in school to maintain good grades, and because he wanted to get into a good school and move on and have this great college experience. And so he didn't get to walk across the stage, and he didn't get that diploma and turn the tassel from one side to the other, and he didn't get to he had plans. He and a friend were going to go to prom, and just it's that last, it's all those sort of little rituals that you do go through when you're a senior in high school that brings closure to that experience, and it's a once in a lifetime thing. You don't graduate high school more than once typically, I would think. And so he didn't get all that stuff. And then even the excitement of moving him off to college, he's going away to college. Like there was no road trip, there was no like going with him to the dorms and helping him move a bunch of stuff in, and then going down to Target or whatever, and buying all the little fun dorm stuff that you need for a room. I mean, we sent him off to college by himself in an airplane with 2 overly stuffed suitcases of every bit of clothing we could pack in there. And then he went directly to his dorm, and they basically locked him inside for 2 weeks, and he's still got he's been there a week. He's got a week to go, so a little less than a week. But yeah, it's weird. It's where's the freshman orientation mixer and stuff like that, right? that we got to do when we went off to school.
You're naming a lot of social functions that I have no recollection of. What's this? Wait, so there's a prom? I didn't go to prom, and I turned out just fine. Thank you very much.
Remains to be seen, my friend.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear that about your son and everything. I think it's really tough, man. Everyone's going through some really tough stuff at the moment, and hopefully, we'll have some more positive predictions for the next 6 months, which brings on our exciting next part of this podcast, which is: do you have any swing predictions for 6 months' time, Andy? Exciting. They could be massive predictions. What do you think is going to be happening?
What's your dream 6 months from now? Late February. It's a lovely late February in Seattle. It's 50 degrees and raining.
I think 6 months from now, I'm hopeful that there is some movement on a vaccine distribution, so that if we're not actually making moves to get students back in the classroom, and I would assume that it wouldn't be like a full stop and switch, like it would be, okay, we've reached this point in our community, so we're going to start transitioning to a hybrid model or something like that, right? So, there's been predictions for quite a while that there could be vaccines by, December, January, that kind of a thing. And so, in February, could that have been distributed enough, and could we see effects enough that we could start making plans for that? I think that'd be exciting for a lot of people. I'm hopeful that might happen, but that's about the only thing I want to predict. I'm hoping that in February there's this big sigh of relief that we have a change in our federal administration.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I think government's government, but I can't imagine anything being worse than the situation that we are in now. No matter what.
Well, we'll see.
Right. So, as far as
so many times it's turned out there's no bottom. So let's see what 6 months brings.
That's true. And I never would have predicted where we landed with our current president. So what the hell do I know? But
so you regret voting for him, is what you're saying?
He made so many promises.
It sounded really good on paper.
Yeah, on paper he looked so good.
Yeah. So Andy, we're not going to say goodbye, because through the miracle of editing, this conversation will continue. But a thing that we've asked our guests to do is to start a joke or a statement that they don't know how it's going to end, and then we're going to seamlessly edit them together. Does that make sense?
I think so. So the start of a sentence, right? I don't have to do this, you guys, and walk into a bar or something like that.
No.
And you have 6 months to think of a good ending to the sentence.
All right. By the way, I want to know who how many, you said there was alien predictions about aliens. How many of your listeners predicted like alien overlords or something like that? Because I want to think about the demographic here I'm trying to reach,
Oh, okay.
I think it's only one so far.
Only the one so far. We've had one predict aliens, one person predict robot, and then the rest all had very dire predictions about the election.
Yeah, it was all very, very depressing Trump stuff.
Yeah.
I got kind of excited about robots for a little bit. Were either of you doom scrollers? Because I got pretty bad at doom scrolling, particularly at the beginning of all this stuff. And
what's doom scrolling? Where you just go through Facebook and
doom scrolling is where you just like look at Facebook. Social media feeds are just regular like news feeds, and you just scroll through and you're basically looking at like death toll tickers and then just like all the terrible news that's just coming, and you just keep reading the news. And I definitely kind of got into that. But one of the things got me really excited was, did you see all the robot stuff that was coming out? I was actually excited about all this. I thought this was going to be this pandemic and its apocalyptic.
What robot stuff are you talking about? What do you mean robot stuff?
There's robots.
There's robots.
There's another school district, one of our neighboring school districts. They have like these big scanning machines. Do you guys remember Total Recall? And they have to walk through stuff.
Yes.
And they've got those. And they're gonna, like, everybody, staff, students, they're gonna walk through there one at a time, and it's gonna take your temperature as you walk through it. Right? There are places where there are these robots because they don't want to put people in harm's way, to get within 6 feet and like do a temperature check. So there's these robots, and you go up and you put your face to this robot, and it scans your face and does a temperature check, and it asks you all these questions. And so I was getting excited about all these robots coming into our life. I wanted a robot for a best friend.
Wow, that really hurts, Andy.
The most exciting piece of technology in the last 6 months has been...
I don't know if there's anything interesting. I mean, I thought about talking about, the RMNA vaccine stuff, but that's like all in the news. That's boring. Thought about talking about robots, but...
Whatever you're excited to talk about. I thought you were going to totally say the best technology thing was the Mars rover, the new Mars rover, which is a cool robot.
About that too. It is a robot, and it's on Mars, and I want to go to Mars.
It's Mars, and it's who doesn't?
Yeah,
really? And it's got and I just saw a cool picture.
My family does not want to go.
Oh, they don't want to go. Leave them. They're just holding you back. No, and they just released a picture from Mars. It was one of those cool 360 pictures, like you see when people go to the beach or realtors use, and so now we have realtor technology on Mars.
That's crazy.
What they call Perseverance, right? I'm guessing why they called it Perseverance is it's going to go there, it's going to find all these amazing samples, and then it's going to sit there and wait
until somebody can pick it up.
10 years before they can get those samples.
Yeah, they should just send people there. Have you ever heard like the stats are like the things that we've done with all these rovers over the years? If we just sent a person, we could have gotten all that information in like a day. Like it's just like it's like the robots are great and they're incredibly advanced, but it's like the things they can do are nothing compared to like if you just had a guy there in a suit or a girl in a suit.
But then, anyways, everybody says though that doing so would be a one-way trip. So like that's hard to get somebody to volunteer to do that.
Listen, I think we need to stop asking for volunteers and start kidnapping people off the street.
On straws.
I actually had a friend I have a friend. I haven't spoken to him in a long time, but we worked together years ago, and his dad was involved with the Mars landing, not the one before, but the one before that wasn't actually successful. And I think
that's what you get when you put Australians involved.
He's actually British, thank you. But what I thought was like sometimes I feel so upset with myself, like as in if I make a mistake or I do something that's stupid or whatever. But then I think of this guy's dad, and I think like they literally spent years on that, like years, and then it got there and it didn't work, or that it didn't land properly, or something happened, and you just think like the disappointment that must have come with that, like it would just be crushing. I think they spent 3 years of their life preparing for it or something, and that's just crazy. It's So anyway, I don't know, maybe that's just really depressing. But how long does it actually take to get to Mars?
About 3 months, I think.
Is that all?
That's not very long.
I thought it was like a year.
Yeah.
I didn't think so. I could be wrong. I thought it was like 3 months.
I don't know.
Must be pricey though.
Well, yeah. I mean, ticket. First off, the round trip ticket is just you can't afford it. Nobody can afford it.
There was probably a lot of people only a couple of years ago saying, humans would not be able to withstand isolation for that long. Well,
Yeah.
The last year or so, we've all sort of been in this experiment, right? Because they've been doing experiments like NASA has done, like long-term isolated habitation experiments and stuff in very different climates to see about that exact kind of thing. And now, like, everybody's done it, so anybody can go, take people off the street. It's fine.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Kidnap people off the street. Andy, enough about this. How have you been, man? How's it been the last 6 months?
Interesting.
Yeah.
As I listened back and I was thinking, man, I don't think I would have predicted where I was going to be at this time.
Okay.
Which is kind of what I said during that time. Like, I don't think anybody can predict that kind of stuff anymore. Like, you can't predict anything more than a couple of weeks out.
Yeah.
One would have hoped that things got under control, but man, it just keeps life just keeps kind of sending curveballs, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm good. My family's healthy, and I'm still employed and all that kind of stuff. But the functions of my job have changed quite dramatically. Watching my kids go through school has been an interesting experience. And then I got bored and taken on a few hobbies and just started ripping my house apart. And, I'll fix this and I'll fix that. And yeah.
Well, I'll start with your house because I saw pictures of your house today because you posted some on Facebook. And you tore out your kitchen and your living room and your bedroom.
Yeah.
There was like the one half of your house. I realized I was like, oh yeah, he did all the other rooms. And now he's doing the other half of his house.
All those rooms, by the way, are much smaller. And our entire family is now living in Penelope's room.
I was thinking about that too. Yeah.
So why was there a reason you did them all at once instead of just doing one at a time?
Well, we sort of have done most of the work in the bedroom and in the living room. But the kitchen was like a pretty big hall, and I wasn't going to be able to do all of that by myself. But we had some pretty nasty carpet that came with the house when we bought it. And, it was old and it needed to be taken up. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to go with hardwoods because we liked that, and the rest of the house we thought it would look nice. But we're like, well, if we're going to do that, we're going to do the bedroom. And then we're like, well, you know what? I was going to do tile in the kitchen, but we're decided to go hardwood in the kitchen. So we're doing it all the way through. And that necessitates us not being able to, like, be in there. Like, we thought, well, we can just, because, when we were modeling the bedroom, like, we just took all the other furniture out except for the bed. Well, now everything's got to be out there. We can't sleep in there. So we've got this den, and it's packed to the gills with all kinds of furniture. And then my daughter's room is basically turned into like our living room and our dining room and her bedroom. And then my son's bedroom is basically another bedroom, but where everybody goes to school. So, and that's pretty much it.
Whoa.
And it's really hard to do one room of hardwood floor and then have a guy come back in a few months. I mean, it can be done, but every time the hardwood gets done, we have to vacate the house when they seal it because of the chemicals and stuff they use. So we didn't want to do that multiple times. And we've been hating our kitchen ever since we moved into that house, and we just decided to do it. And it sort of sparked all these other things. So it was a domino effect.
Well, it sounds exciting. It sounds really,
It'll be exciting when it's done for sure.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like that's a classic quarantine project. That I think a lot of people have been embarking on.
Yeah.
And that was the other reason we wanted to kind of compact it all together, because it would really prolong how much it affects the kids. And right now, my wife and I, we just kind of split, like one of us sleeps in a room with the kiddo, sleeps in the other with the kiddo, because that's, just what we got to do. And they love that because they like, all the extra cuddle time and stuff. But
that's so sweet.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, but we can't do that forever. And
right.
That's why we threw it all together.
Yeah, so you spent a year stuck inside with your family, and then you said, what we need is less space.
Exactly what happened.
Yeah, like if only we could be like just on top of each other in a big old pile all the time.
Yeah.
And you throw the dog in there and the turtle. Just everybody's in there.
Everybody.
Have you got a turtle?
Yeah, I got a tortoise.
Sorry.
Mr. Buttons, who we later found out is actually a girl. We improperly gendered our tortoise, but
that's why I always called her Professor Buttons.
We tried to switch it to Mrs. Buttons, but it just never stuck. So she's just Mr. Buttons.
That's cool.
She seems okay with it.
Yeah, God, it'd be nice to have a pet. I keep getting tempted to get a dog, and then I'm like, no, must not get a dog. I already have 2 toddlers to look after, and that is enough. But they're so cute,
Yeah, it's like having a toddler for years,
Did you have the dog when we talked to you before?
No, we got the dog in October.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
So that's
what kind
new.
of dog is it?
A rescue. We didn't want to, it's actually quite hard. A lot of people were getting dogs. It's another sort of COVID quarantine thing that people did.
Yeah.
And you hear all kinds of people doing it. My wife had always wanted a dog, and she kept looking, but every time she found what she was looking for, the size and the type of dog, they were gone. They just COVID closed down a whole lot of the regular avenues to rescue pets, and there sort of became like these large pet clearing houses that were developed across the country. So the parameters for which she was looking for sort of started to broaden. Because she couldn't find a dog. Dogs kept getting bigger, and the breed choices kept getting bigger.
So now we have a horse.
We found this. He's a really handsome dog. He's some sort of shepherd mix. But he was rescued, found on the side of a road starving, and somebody rescued him.
Oh.
So we got him, and he's really sweet. He's good with the kids, and he's still kind of a puppy, but he's doing okay. He's definitely, we're stressing him out a little bit, but I think he's okay.
Oh yeah, he's all the way from Texas, right? That's where he came from.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. Well, that's cool. That sounds like a very nice bit of news.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said it like that. So Andy, what is going on with schools in Seattle, with your school and with schools in general? I was listening to the news today, and they were talking about, the Biden administration's plan. They want everybody back in school by the end of April, 5 days a week. But it's I guess that's the top line message, but it's kind of just there's got to be nuance to it, and different communities, different things. But how are things with you or with your particular school district?
It's frustrating. We've been operating. So I know we talked back in September, but I'm not sure what the date was when we talked, and I'm not even sure if school had started.
It was a week before school started. At the exact date.
We've been 100% online, and everybody was a little bit worried about it, including myself. But it's worked surprisingly well in a lot of ways. I mean, there's obviously downfalls to that form of educating kids.
Uh-huh.
Not ideal, but it's interesting how much we've found that it really works for some kids. It really sort of speaks to the way that they think and how they process. There are some kids absolutely thriving in this and are doing better than they did in the classroom because they don't have the social distractions, or they have some. They may have anxiety disorders or social behavior issues that are exacerbated in classrooms. So there's that, which is interesting.
Is it is it half? Is it a small percentage that was normally kind of maybe falling behind? Or what kind of numbers are we?
It's a pretty small percentage. I don't think anybody's really tracking it. We're just noticing, particularly some of our kids who struggle the most in school, some of that population is doing really well.
Wow!
And some of those who struggle the most are still struggling. That's also true. So I don't think it was a magic bullet for some, but it definitely is an interesting thing that I don't think a lot of people predicted, including for my own son, who is actually thriving this year and has learned quite a bit. He's really made a lot of progress in learning how to read. And
how old is he?
He's 7, and he was behind in reading. He was struggling, and mainly because he's quite distractible. And he's still distractible. It's not like this cured him or anything, but he can be on a screen, and his hands can be filled with Legos, and he could be just kind of manipulating those Legos, and nobody cares, right?
Oh, right.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So he's allowed to play with the Lego, and that almost helps him in a way.
Yeah. It occupies a portion of his brain, and there's some processing. He's got too many things going on upstairs, and so when he is able to do that, then he's able to focus in on what's happening in class. And so that's the kind of stuff that when I was a teacher, I had little things like that, because there are kids who come through your class who need that kind of thing. But not all teachers do that.
Yeah.
And not all teachers kind of allow for that. And even when I was doing it, it was a fine balance, because a kid with a handful of Legos in a room with 20 other kids, they all want Legos too. But some of those kids can't have Legos and still process the math that we're doing, because they're on building a replica of the London Bridge or whatever. So so you have to have this kind of strange balance, and I would have to talk to the whole class this is a tool that's for him because he needs this in order to access math, and have that conversation with the kindergartner, and just really try and dive into that. It's kind of tough. So he can do that stuff here. No conversation really needs to be had, and And so,
that's amazing.
And nobody else knows that he's doing it unless he's in front, which sometimes he does. But, they're all home and they do that kind of stuff too. And for some kids, it's a distraction and they need to have their attention called back. And for the kids, it's what keeps them in front of the screen.
How many hours a day is he doing this sort of online school?
So the district has a schedule. It's 8:30 to 3 every single day. For Wednesdays,
really?
Yeah, Wednesdays is an early release for professional development for teachers. So, by the way, I have to leave at 2 o'clock because today's Wednesday.
Okay. We won't keep you that long, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think we will either. So that's a long time, but it's not the entire time. So there's within that time frame, there's set amounts of expected time that the teachers are to engage with students in a live session and how many minutes for each content area. And then and there's breaks built into that. And then there's what they call asynchronous learning, which then we use another platform where they go online and they can find little assignments and then they can log in and do those assignments and post the results.
Wow. Well, I think I've always felt like maybe we have too much time, like as in maybe children have too much time that they have to be in a classroom. So in some ways, like maybe it's good that they can have more breaks. I don't know. Like I remember maybe reading something somewhere that was like actually you can only focus for like 45 minutes or 50 minutes or something like that in a row on one thing.
It's even less for younger kids.
Yeah, so it just seems unfair to kind of have them having to do work for a really long time.
Yeah, and it's another sort of like silver lining of this platform has been that the big word in education circles is differentiation. Like how do you can't teach everything the same to everybody. Kids learn different in different ways and kids' interests vary. So even though you might be talking about something that, 2/3 of your class find interesting, the other third is checked out because they don't give a crap. So with the asynchronous platform, like you can really put up a lot of different things for kiddos to explore. Maybe that might challenge them, enrich them, some things that might be tailored directly to their needs. And so, like, those are little things that we're really discovering can be beneficial. Kids are definitely learning, but yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and I don't think I've ever been busier. Hey, Matt, I'm catching up. I got my first gray streak. I joked about how I got my first gray streak.
Great. You're 10 years older than me, and you've got...
I've got my first gray hairs. I joked about how this would be the year that I'd get them, and I did. Unfortunately, my principal had to go out on leave. We got an interim principal, but, she doesn't know our building or our community, so she kind of took over some of the stuff that would be easy for her to step into, and I'm busy as all get out because she went on leave in like October. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's too bad. I'm sorry you're so busy. So you're saying that a lot of the students are doing online learning, and they seem to be doing well. Do you feel like they're doing as well as they would necessarily, like overall, like as
no.
You say that it is good for some students. I mean, I guess I have two questions. One is, do you think they're doing as well overall? And then also, do you think that when things kind of return to in-person classes, do you think this will kind of inform about like the ways that students are taught, or like are people rethinking kind of the idea of in-person classrooms or as a whole, or like the schedule of schools or whatever?
And I hope people are rethinking it, because I think there's a lot to be learned, and I think that there's been some interesting developments that we did not foresee and did not accurately predict. But overall, are they doing as well? I don't really think so. I mean, of all the positive things I was just saying, I don't think that this is the way of the future for education. But I do think that there's some interesting possibilities out there. And I kind of wonder too about, like we have alternative learning pathways for secondary kids, kids who are in middle school and high school who can't really seem to function very well. Like it doesn't work, like regular schooling doesn't work. But oftentimes they have to almost be failing out of their classes before like, oh, here's this alternative setting and you can do a lot of stuff online. And then they have that option. Well, maybe we could be thinking about that as an option for anybody who wants to opt in whenever they want to. And it's only for secondary. Maybe we could create an online elementary academic academy, or I don't know, something like that, for students who would be able to access their learning in this way. There's a lot of infrastructure that has to happen that way. But I think when we come back, I think there's going to be a whole lot of relearning around the social interactions. Plus, we're going to have new health and safety protocols that we're going to have to be thinking about for some time. The school district announced back in December that we were going to come back for in-person services on March 1st. And it has been a insane amount of work. It's like 90% of what I'm doing every day is going from one meeting to another and talking about these things and like the logistics. And I feel like I'm kind of spinning my wheels because we're doing a lot of stuff, but just like everything else with COVID, things keep changing. And there's a lot. It's not just like, oh, we just do it. Like you have to set up the infrastructure for busing and meals, and you have to. What about the teachers and the supplies, and you can't have the same number of kids in the classroom, like all that kind of stuff. And it's been an uphill battle, and it's been delayed. We will not meet March 1st goal. So they're going to push it back, but I'm not sure when we'll do it. And then there's the notion of diminishing returns, right? I mean, March 1st, we're past 100 days of school, and here by law we have to have 180 days of instruction. So we're well past the halfway point. We're going to have maybe 70 days left of school, and we've already delayed it. So at what point do we, is there a cutoff that if it gets delayed, we're going to come back for the last 50 days of school, 40 days of school? Like what,
right?
What do we do?
Yeah. At what point do you say well, let's just call this year a wash and we'll start fresh in the fall?
Yeah. And there's people on both sides of it. There are parents who are like, what is wrong with you? Get my kid back into school. And there are parents who are saying, what is wrong with you? I don't want my kids going to school and bringing COVID back, right? Particularly, we've got at my school, we've got a lot of families who are students living in multi-generational households. We've got students who are in more at-risk categories, people of color. We've got a large SPED, special education population. Some of which have underlying health conditions that are associated with their special needs. So I see both sides of it. I don't know what the answers are. I know that it's a complicated mess, and I think there's a lot of options and a lot of things to think about. I hope that people are thinking more about the why we do schooling as opposed to the how we do schooling. Because if you just think about the how we do schooling, we're going to up exactly where we were, for the last however many decades, right? Yeah. Only with masks on, and more hand washing or something. And if we can really think more about why we do it, that could lead to new ways of how that might be more effective, that might meet the needs of more kiddos, that might be more responsive to the different learning styles, cultural backgrounds, and family needs that are out there.
Yeah.
Wow, Andrew, that's really beautiful. It's really enlightening that you feel that way about it. And it's amazing to hear someone talking about it like that. And I think, it'd be amazing if that was able to be much more widespread, I guess. I don't know, are people thinking like this? Is this a kind of, I don't know. I don't talk to many, a huge number of teachers.
Well, I can't take credit for all of those. I'm reading a lot of articles. I'm meeting with a lot of other leaders in the district, and we're all talking about these kinds of things. I'm not the innovator here. I'm amalgamating. I'm synthesizing a lot of information that I've read or heard or discussed. But there's just some it's not a simple solution, and unfortunately, I think there are political factors and economic factors at play that are driving some of the decisions and delays and things like that as well.
It does seem like this, because the kind of person stands in front of a group of kids in a classroom model, which has existed forever, hundreds of years, literally. And now you have the kind of the biggest change in the way that we're teaching kids en masse in a very long time. And so then if there are positive lessons to be taken from that, or an element of technology to be used, that could maybe innovate. Is that kind of the idea? Or
yeah, could there be more of a hybrid learning model?
Yeah.
If we talk about 21st century skills, which is a big buzz term in education, you want kids with 21st century skills, and one of them is going to be agency, autonomy, right? And having options that you can go to on an asynchronous learning platform could be part of it. We talk about digital citizenship. Well, having an online platform can really talk to you a lot about digital citizenship in a very practical kind of a way. So I don't think that there's really any decent substitute for kids being able to come together and play and run and have that that dramatic play where, that make-believe kind of a stuff where, kids need and crave structure and routine. But at the same time, they also need unstructured time together so that they can explore social boundaries, so they can explore, elements of their own identity and personality. Some of those things can be handled online and some of those things cannot. So, what's the balance there?
Yeah.
Really fascinating stuff.
So the March 1st deadline that's been pushed back, again, there's like families that are like, we want our kids out of the house. We want them back in school, because maybe they have jobs they need to get to. Maybe they feel like their kids are struggling. But also, you have the other contingent saying the exact opposite thing. Is there an element of like people who want to come back will let them come back, or is that even an option? And the people who don't?
Well, I'll tell you what, so the plan was for preschool, kindergarten, and first grade to come back on March 1st, just that. And I took a little bit of issue with that. It seemed, I don't know, like I was thinking just like you were, there's got to be families out there who need this to happen because they cannot work remotely, or they can't even go out and find a job because they have children at home. And if they have, like I do, a first grader and a third grader in their home, what good does the pre-K through first grade model do to them? It doesn't. It sends one of their kids off, but their third grader's still stuck at home. And are you going to leave an 8 or 9-year-old at home by yourself while you go work? I mean, one of the things we've done at our school is seeing through attendance issues and other factors that we knew were the families that were struggling the most to get their kids online and get their kids in class, is worked with some community partners to develop an off-site space where it's not in-person schooling or anything, but it's a place where kids can go, where there's reliable, consistent adult supervision. There is a safe space for them to sit and work with reliable high-speed internet. We'll get them food, and we'll bus them there. And it was a heavy list. It took months to get this in action, but we just launched it on Monday. And we have space for 20 families, and right now we've got 16 families signed up. So 16 more families that their whole family is being looked at, not just the preschool, kindergarten, and first. So that allows that family then to work, or to search for a job, or to do the things that they need to do during the day. And we already had a partnership with another organization, the Boys and Girls Club. We just worked to get some more funding in place for them so they could double their capacity because they're working out of our actual school building. So, we're getting upwards towards, 30, 40 families that will have supports that wouldn't otherwise, where they can get their kids supports outside of the house so they can go to work or look for work or do what they need to do.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's great.
Yeah, I think models like that is what we should be considering. If you had small hubs like that dotted throughout the city, like we look for a community partner in our community to serve the kids in our community. But if you had hubs like that all over the city, it might be something that families who are ready to do that would sign up for, so they could get out of the house and go to work. Some of whom may be working from home remotely, but they're in a small home or apartment and they can't do their jobs remotely while supporting the 2 kids that they have at home. My wife she's about to finish. She'll be done with grad school in April. She was going to be done sooner, but because of the demands on me and what I had to do, I wasn't much help to her. I did what I could. But she did the brunt of helping the kids, which is, pretty typical. Like women have taken the brunt of these new conditions, right? She sacrificed a whole nother term, adding a whole nother term to her grad school time. The nice thing is now she's only got 1 class this term, so she's got more flexibility to help with the kids and things like that. And she'll be done in April. So, but it was a struggle for her too. She couldn't finish her other term had I not just said, I can't go into the building. I need to be at home. I need to help my kid with math. Right. And sometimes you just can't do that.
It's good that you guys are getting the community help. That you're able to reach out and help those people in the community that do need that extra help. Because that is the major thing. It seems like when people talk about school reopening, like it's just a bad thing. I don't know what the rules are in Washington. Are teachers getting vaccinated? Is that kind of a priority in Washington?
Yeah, it's kind of like what you were saying before. Like when you read the headlines and then you dive into the article and things are different. There's been a lot of talk about vaccinating teachers and how they're going to prioritize that. But when you read deeper into the articles, nothing's changed. They talked about prioritizing it, but every state's doing it differently. That's not helpful because when you read national headlines, like what they're doing in Georgia or New York or whatever is not the same in our state. And they have a very complicated sort of phase approach. Like I stopped watching because I was like phase 1B tier 4, right? Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah.
And as far as I know, the status hasn't changed. Phase 1B tier 4 is just like, what does that even mean? And
right.
I think you're in trouble no matter what you do. Oregon State, they prioritize teachers over the elderly, right? So the teachers were getting their vaccination before, like, octogenarians and things, and people were mad, So like, no matter what you do, you're gonna piss off some constituency.
Yeah.
But I haven't really looked to try and get a vaccine because, quite frankly, there's not, we're not seeing kids in the building for in-person services. We have kids who receive special education services can come in on a case-by-case basis. There's this long approval process and stuff. So we have 2 students coming into our building right now to receive services in person that based on what their IEP goals are. It's only 2 kiddos, so I don't feel like I'm in desperate need of a vaccination. But if they did move to in-person services where a large amount of kids are going to be coming in every single day,
right,
I think that changes. And I think if I were a teacher, I would want to do something. It's not that the kids are going to get sick, right? We know that kids do pretty well with the virus. They can catch it. They can certainly replicate it and spread it. They tend not to get sick. So either I'm going to pass it to a kid and they're going to take it home to their multi-generational family, which I'm not super stoked about, or they're going to come from their families and pass it to our teachers or to a classmate who then take it home. Again, I can understand all sides of this, and I don't know what the answer is, but I don't know where I'm at. I haven't really pursued it. I suppose I could. I know my dad's got his shot. I think my dad got his second shot. My mom's just got her first.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah,
good.
like my parents got theirs, and that was a huge relief. And my wife's father, he got his. So that was kind of the only things that we were really super concerned about. And we figured we could wait on ours.
Yeah.
Roll the dice on that.
Yeah, my mom was the last in that whole, like, all my dad and all his siblings and spouses and stuff, all of them had gotten at least one shot. My mom got turned away. She said she couldn't get hers. And that.
Jeez.
Wow.
So she just tried another way, And I've heard that, the interim principal that was working here, who's a retired principal, and so she and her husband made an appointment. They went. They said he could get his, but she couldn't get hers. So they both kind of put their arms and left, and they made an appointment somewhere else, and they were able to both get in. But yeah, it's a complicated process that I don't even try to understand because I'm just gonna wait.
Yeah.
Andrew, was there anything listening back to the first half of this that surprised you, or that you'd sort of forgotten, and you were like, oh wow?
I didn't realize how much I talked about education in my job. I mean, I know it's why that's what you wanted to talk about, but I just remember it felt like hanging out with Matt and meeting his new friend Tara. So that was kind of nice. So yeah, I was like, oh my gosh, I sound like somebody who takes their job seriously and all that kind of stuff. Which that's good, I suppose. But
you do. I mean, despite the Star Wars shirt, it seems like you take your job very seriously.
I am a serious man who wears button-down shirts with Star Wars all over.
Yeah, absolutely. No one could ever say
that. I've been really grateful. It's been really insightful talking to you, and I've definitely really enjoyed it. I think it's such an honorable job, and I think
podcaster. You mean we're pretty honorable people. You're right.
It is.
I definitely don't think we can call this a job, Matt.
Oh.
But I hope that it goes well and that you are safe and that you do get to have the vaccine and wish you all the very best with it.
I appreciate that. And I hope the same for you and your little ones. And
thank you.
Yeah. So Andy, just before we let you go, what's next for you? Is there any big? I mean, there's a kitchen project coming up, which is a big personal project.
Yeah,
sounds big. And then reopening school.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think is
I think they're going to keep working at it. My personal feelings, and again, this is my personal feelings, I really think something's going to crash and burn and make it not happen. And whether that's negotiations with teacher contracts or just some sort of infrastructural thing that they can't pull off or some kind of parent revolt, I don't know. I kind of feel like it's not going to happen. But like many other areas of the economy, the school budgets are decimated.
Yeah.
And my job has been reduced for next year.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's pretty typical. It happens almost every year. We're fairly lucky in that the reductions that are happening this year are pretty similar to what happened last year. And so my position went down to half-time, but we...
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but every year we can... There are mechanisms within the budgeting process where we can find ways to prioritize what positions we want to keep, and there's a process. We vote, and we talk to the teachers, and our BLT is just our building leadership team, and we make budgetary recommendations and stuff. And this happened last year, and they voted to fund me. So there's a possibility I'll be full time, no problem. But I do think that this is something that I deal with every single year, and it's not very much fun. And so I'll probably be looking at what principalships might be around. So move it on up and from assistant principal to principal, and that's something.
Oh, fantastic!
That's something.
That's good.
That's something I'll explore.
That'd be great.
We're really excited. Jill, like I said, Jill's going to be done in April, and so.
What's her degree in again?
Master's in Library and Information Science. So,
okay.
With that degree, her specialty is archival studies. So to be an archivist.
Oh yeah, I forgot. You guys are going to move to Oxford and work at one of the many libraries here.
So anybody over at the Bodleian, you gotta drop.
Yeah,
name.
I'll see what I can do.
Yeah. So we'll kind of see where that goes. The beauty of what being an educator. Is that those jobs are not site specific. It's not like I'm an aeronautics engineer and there's only a few like major aeronautics companies.
Right.
Every town in America or across the world really has education opportunities there. So we'll see. I don't think we're planning on moving or anything, but if that's what's in the cards, the problem, the other problem, just like what she's doing and what I'm doing, is that they're also largely publicly funded, which means they're not funded very well. So the job prospects for her might not be very great. A lot of libraries are closed down. We're working with skeleton crews. She may have to look in like private sector, because there are plenty of private companies that have libraries, right?
Yeah.
Lego has its own library. Nintendo has its own library, and they have archivists. So Tommy Bahama has a library.
Huh?
Yeah, they catalog all the fashions that they've ever produced, and so.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Huh.
So there are other opportunities out there, but I just don't know. Judging just from how you guys didn't know that, there's probably not that many out there, right?
I don't know. We're not really library. We're not a library podcast here. We do. Not our specialty. But that's good. I'm congratulations to Jill. That's exciting. I'm glad she got her master's done. Oh, and I hope you find a principalship soon so you can sail the principalship to the stars.
Yeah.
Oh God, you said you weren't going to bring that back, man.
I wasn't. No. Anyways, but we should let you go. Anyways, but thanks again, Andy, for talking to us and telling us about all the giving us your expertise on education and whatnot.
Yeah, thank you for naming it expertise.
It's been really lovely to talk to you.
Yeah, this has been great. Most people we asked if they have social media, but you really don't have social media. So,
do you have anything you want to plug?
Plug. I don't. I'm not much for that. My wife will say, "Hey, I got a TikTok to show you," and that's about as far as I get. So, is
Jill on TikTok?
She looks at TikTok. I don't know if she's got an account. I suppose to sign up, you got to have an account, right? But she never.
Yeah, but you want to plug schools. Send your kids there, or don't. I don't know. It's up in the air. But.
No.
Support public schools. Write your congressman.
Stay 6 feet apart. Wear your mask.
Yeah.
We'll plug all that stuff.
I'd love to plug not getting COVID. Yeah. Don't get COVID if you can.
Oh, plug the vaccine. Get the vaccine.
Get the vaccine. Yeah.
Cuddle.
Everybody get the vaccine.
Babies at home. Cuddle them. And babies are anywhere from like 0 to 18. As long as it's consensual cuddling, don't scar your children. But appreciate them more.
All right, so Andy's plugging cuddling and schools and the vaccine.
Yeah,
they're good plugs.
Because he's got frankly, he's got stakes in all of them. He's got a little bit. He's being paid off by big cuddles. Well, good luck with the renovation.
I'll post some more pictures at some point, I'm sure.
I'm curious to see what you're going to do. All right, take care, Andy.
Take
Bye.
Care. Bye. Obviously, I don't want this going in the podcast, but I've got I guess a bit of. Oh, actually, you know what? It can go on the podcast. It's fine. I basically it's just been I don't know. I think it's just been probably the most horrific week financially that we've had ever. It was just like one thing after another. So like I told you last week about the visa stuff.
Yeah.
So all of that ended up costing like £5,000. And then...
But are they going to let you stay?
That's all fine. But it's more just the expense of it is a bit of a nightmare. And then I still don't know if I get to actually go on to my permanent residency next, or whether I have to wait the 5 years, you know, so I have to wait for the Home Office to get back on that.
Oh, I see.
But anyway, so $5,000 gone, and then our front door is broken. So, and it has to be a fire door, and they are just ridiculously expensive. So the minimum we can pay for a fire door to be installed is like just over £1,600. And then on the weekend, our car bonnet flew up, and basically the insurance company has written off our car. So it's been like in this like last week, because obviously we've got to now buy a new car, and they're only going to give us back like, you know, probably half what we paid for our car originally. Yeah. So we're going to have to, and the car, like to replace the car, I'm looking at cars that are like $5,000 more than we paid for already. So we've literally, it's been like a £10,000 lost week, basically. Like it's been one of those weeks where you're just like, thank God we have savings, because I don't know how people, you know, because a lot of people don't have savings, and I don't know how, you'd be in real trouble now. Yeah. Like, so I'm grateful that I've saved, but at the same time, I feel slightly angry, because I'm like, I've saved all this money, and now it's, you know, we've worked hard to save this money, but do you know what? It's just been such an exercise in like letting go, as I think I said last week as well. It's just been further letting go since last time, where
it's like, how much more do I have to let go? It feels like I have nothing left.
I know, like, I feel like this is some kind of cruel testing, like, you know, Job in the Bible. Like, it just feels like, what, like, why is this happening? And I'm really hoping this is the end of it, please. But, you know, anyway, it's, you know, as I said to Will, like the main thing is that we have each other, and we have our beautiful babies, and I'm so grateful for that. And when you think about the number of people who have lost loved ones in the last 12 months, and, you know, they're the real issues. And I talked to a friend, and she's pregnant, and she's in hospital, and, you know, she's got some really serious complications, and I was so upset, and I just thought, you know, that's the stuff that matters. Like, this is just money. Like, what we're going through is money, and yes, it's frustrating, but it's just money. It's not life. Right. What matters is life and people.
Right. Wait, how'd you break your front door?
Just kicking it. I just love to kick it. It brings me great joy.
I mean, I was like, yeah, were you raided by the cops? Like, why is your front door broken?
It's been a very gradual process of breaking. It just expanded a lot because of winter, I guess. Oh, okay. So it's expanded every winter. It seems to expand more for some reason. And then it got to the point the other day where it was like, I can't open this door. Like, I genuinely can't. I'm there like pulling it, and I had my hand in the letterbox and my other hand on the handle. I could not get it open. And then my husband came, and he couldn't get it open. And I was like, oh my God, we're literally trapped in our own.
It's not a very effective fire door.
Yeah, well, it's effective for protecting the rest of the apartment building.
Yeah, I guess so.
And keeping us trapped inside with the fire. But anyway, he ended up having to go and get some tool to like unwedge the door.
An unwedger, yeah. I have one of those.
I don't know what they're called. You know, tools. They're like...
A crowbar?
Yes, a crowbar.
It's kind of Tool 101, Tara. I feel like you should know that one.
Listen, I don't know about these things. It's actually, I was going to say it's manly business, but that's completely untrue. I love doing all that stuff, you know, fixing stuff. Anyway.
When I first met Alice, I was installing a kitchen in my old apartment.
Oh.
Because I moved into an apartment without a kitchen. Right. And part of the deal with it was like, hey, I was like, when I moved in, I was like, hey, if I install a kitchen in here, can I just take the materials off my rent? And she was like, yeah, okay.
Oh, wow.
I just did that. Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't save any money, but it was like a fun project to do.
I didn't know you could install kitchens. Is this like a thing that you can do?
I mean, installing a kitchen is not, I mean, I put in cabinets. I built cabinets and a countertop and then like a little bar. And then I installed a sink. There was no sink. For some reason, the only sink was in the bathroom.
Did you get a plumber in to do the sort of plumbing for the sink and stuff?
No.
What, you did that yourself?
Yeah, it's not rocket science.
Oh my God, I am blown away by this. This is amazing.
Yeah. I got like a secondhand sink at like Habitat for Humanity like store that sold like old, like people would be renovating houses. They donate all the old appliances, things that still work, like light fixtures. So I got like an old sink or whatever. Anyways, the whole point was every time I went to Home Depot when I was first dating Alice, like I'd just be like, "Oh, you want to go to Home Depot?" And she'd be like, "Yeah," because she loves science and she loves cool science stuff. And so every time we went, I'd be like, "I'll buy you one tool," and so
oh my God,
so just buy her a little wrench or something. And
oh, that's such a sweet gift.
Oh, actually, I remember why I bought this. I was gonna say I bought her what's called a foobar, which is like a combination hammer, crowbar, like nail. It's basically it's a tool made for destruction. It's a demolition tool, right. And it's about 1.5 feet long, and it's got a hammer and whatever. It's basically you can just fuck shit up with it. And I bought that for her so that she could carry it around with her if she wanted to, because she used to have a real problem with claustrophobia, and she was really afraid if she went into like a bathroom or something in a public place, like if the lock didn't work or whatever. Sometimes she'd have me like stand outside of a door and just be like, I don't trust this lock. Can you just stand here and make sure nobody comes in? Then I was like, well, I'll get you this tool. So if I'm around, you can get yourself out with this foobar.
That's actually a really sweet, thoughtful present. And to be honest, it's not an unjustifiable phobia. Like a friend of mine locked himself in his own bathroom, and he had left... Well, no, actually, the door handle broke. He didn't have his phone in there, and he literally realized, like, because there were no windows in there, and he literally realized, like, no one was going to come and visit him. He lived alone in an apartment block. He was like, if I don't get myself out of here, I could literally, like, die in this bathroom. So he showed a photo of his hands, and he had like ripped them apart, ripping off the door handle. Like, I don't know how he did it, but it was that thing where, and they found a woman dead in an apartment, no, in a hotel. She'd managed to like go into this little cupboard thing because it had been dark and she hadn't seen, and then the door had closed behind her, and she couldn't get out basically because there was no way of getting out from the inside. Yeah. So I totally do get the claustrophobia with stuff like that. I often think when I'm in a bathroom and the door locks, I'm like, I hope I have my phone with me.
I don't know how we got on this, but anyways,
we got onto it because we talked about our door breaking.
Oh, your door
my
breaking,
husband getting the tool, the crowbar, to let us out. Anyway, so yeah, it's just yet another expense, and I don't even. It's not that I don't care now, but I've just fully accepted it in a kind of Buddhist monk way. And, you know, I think, yeah, it's just what's happening. And we're moving on, and I'm looking to the future. How about you, Matt? How's your week been?
It's been fine. I should say with what we talked about in the intro, I should say that so the intro had a rumor.
The Boris Johnson stuff.
That I heard, and apparently it's not true.
It's not true.
Or if it is true, it's still under what's called the super injunction, which means nobody can report on it. Oh. And so...
Are we allowed to actually keep it in the podcast?
I guess so. I don't know. It's something I overheard at a bar from a stranger. So it may have just been a complete falsehood. Anyways, so I don't think it's true. So that's just a tall tale I heard. So it doesn't matter.
Okay.
But, you know, if we get sued... maybe that'll be good publicity.
Yeah, well, I just want to say that I take no responsibility for this because I was not involved in hearing the rumor. And I also take back whatever things I said to support the rumor in the first place. I definitely think it's pretty widely known that he has multiple children with like multiple different women. So I don't think we'll get in trouble for saying that.
Oh, that part is not... Yeah, that part is not rumor. I think that's pretty much an understood fact. But whether or not his wife left him or whatever, I don't even remember all the rumor now. But that I overheard in a bar. So
I love the way you made it sound so important at the time. You're like, well, I definitely can't tell you who it was, because as though they're like some really important person that
It was Jacob Rees-Mogg, he told me. Apparently that's not true, I guess. So that was disappointing. I don't know, what else did we talk about in the first half?
I don't think there was nothing that I was just talking about how difficult life with toddlers is, and I think things are getting slightly easier, but there's really nothing to report on in that. I mean, it's just that's just life, and we've talked a lot about children already. Anyway, things are okay with Tavish. He's doing well.
Yeah, he's fine. He's hard to settle, but he's been feeding a lot. So, like I said, he's up to 11 pounds.
Whoa, that's great.
He's getting bigger and driving his mom nuts, but because it seems like the only thing that can really settle him is breastfeeding and
yeah, it's full on.
But anyways, thanks everybody for listening. If you would please rate, review, subscribe. Rating and reviewing is super helpful to us. It's probably the single best thing you could do to help us out, in addition to just listening and being our friends and just like putting good thoughts out into the universe for us, you know. I mean, and we do appreciate all that positive vibes, but if you could translate some of those into actual reviews on iTunes, that also helps. Yeah, and if you want to follow us, we're 6 Months Later Pod on Twitter
and Instagram and Facebook. You can find me. I'm Tara NW Comedy on all the stuff, and you can find Matt.
I'm M. Shador on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow me if you like. Not super active, but you know, if I am active, it's probably all right. But I do make actual other media. In addition to this, I have another podcast called Saint Misbehavin', and this Sunday an episode just came out about a saint called Saint Abba the Great, and so it is just an excuse for us to make a lot of Abba-based jokes. But he's also kind of a fun saint. He's a guy. He shows great personal growth in addition to being just kind of a nice guy in general. So,
oh, that's nice.
So, Mamma Mia, here we go again. You know, never forget it. But yeah, we do make a lot of ABBA-based puns. So if you enjoy that, I would definitely check out Saint Misbehavin' with my friend and researcher, or just researcher, Anna Dominic.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. And also, if you could support our Patreon, that would be amazing. Just search for 6 Months Later. We appreciate it.
Yeah. You could be the first person to support our Patreon if you want.
Yeah. Hey, just anyone. This would be great right now.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you next week.
In 6 months. Bye. Bye.
You're my rock, Andy. I think it was, this marching band will fall apart if you leave.